shame. We don't even talk about it. It's not obvious to us, but many of us are secretly fueled by the fear of not being enough, being critical with ourselves, or these things like perfectionism or things like that, right? In this episode, I'm going to talk all about shame, yes, shame, and how it fuels high achievement and why it creates a cycle of never feeling like enough, that imposter syndrome, what you can do to shift it into being a healthier, more purpose-driven motivation. Gentlemen, welcome to the Inside Man podcast. I'm Gary Kadi. You can call me GK, and this show is all about helping high-achieving men break free from burnout, find fulfillment, and achieve lasting success. Today, we are diving into a tough but a powerful topic. In fact, I couldn't even make it to the gym yet. I had to come in because I was so jacked and so feeling it that I wanted you to feel it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in before the gym. We're going to talk about a blind spot for most of us guys, shame. Oh yeah, the shame game. Most high achievers, we don't even talk about it. It's not obvious to us, but many of us are secretly fueled by the fear of not being enough or being critical with ourselves, or these things like perfectionism or things like that, right? So it has been our fuel, but it also could be our demise, and it has been. And it keeps us pushing harder, achieving more, but at what cost? In this episode, I'm going to talk all about shame, yes, shame, and how it fuels high achievement and why it creates a cycle of never feeling like enough, that imposter syndrome, what you can do to shift it into being a healthier, more purpose-driven motivation. But before we dive in, I want to make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss these episodes, because we're going to talk about shame today. We're also going to uncollapse guilt. And shame, usually we think they go together and they don't. That's a whole nother episode. So you want to subscribe so you get that piece when it comes. And I want to thank all the ladies out there. Guys, the ladies are kicking your butt. They are subscribing and they're sending it out to way more ladies. Let's go, guys. Come on. We got to help our brothers. It's interesting, I found, that so many ladies are really like sharing this work because they really believe in it. And I know you do too. So please share it with a brother. If it resonates with you, share it with a friend, because it's not about, you can't keep something you don't give away. So make sure you give it away. Have good conversations with your brothers, your homies. And because you're not the only one who needs it to hear it, it's like this runs rampant and it's not usually talked about. So how does shame fuel success, but at a cost? Well, the first thing I want to do is define shame. Shame is a deeply ingrained, not always obvious emotion, and our emotions that are driving us that makes a man feel fundamentally flawed, unworthy, and not enough. Unlike guilt, which is actions, which is like more about actions. Okay. So I did something bad is guilt. Shame is about an identity. I am bad. Okay. Very different. And it often stems from early experiences of criticism, failure, or rejection. And it could become a powerful internalized belief that fuels us. Like, man, entrepreneurs, our pain threshold and risk tolerance is ridiculous. And it's because we're usually running from something and we don't even know we're running from it. And that's why at 30 turns into 40, 40 turns into 50, can deal with it until like early 40s. And then what I see is a lot of guys, and see this common in the arc of a man, this is when it starts hitting. I got, sober at 44. A lot of men begin their transformation, or they get stuck. You see the guy who's, old cat trying to do that midlife thing and not evolving. And look, we all have it because we all want to stay young and sexy, but we don't want to be driven by the emotion, because it's the fuel that just gets us also in trouble, right? The numbing and all the stuff we're going to talk about today. So how does shame manifest itself in highly successful male entrepreneurs like us? So for high achieving men, shame is like I said, really not obvious. It tends to show up in behaviors and mindsets that drive our success, but it also creates the inner turmoil. It's like the front of the hand, the front of the hand, the back of the hand, right? It's all right there. And it's so close to one another. That's why sometimes these things are difficult to distinguish and see. And I love uncollapsing things. The first thing we uncollapsed was shame and guilt. They're not the same thing. This is something, and the reason why I'm starting with shame is because it's something you can interrupt for yourself, right? You can interrupt guilt as well, but this is easier to dismantle. So one thing that happens, which puts us in the career path that we choose, is overcompensation through achievement. right? So we're like there, like success becomes a coping mechanism to prove our worthiness. Remember, at the core, the root cause of chronic suffering and zero joy is the worthiness of self. What's on top of this are the emotions of shame and guilt. And it usually comes from, our upbringing, something we told ourselves, usually, come from different places. The other thing that this shows up in is workaholism. Like, we're ridiculous how much we work, right? It's the endless pursuit of goals with little satisfaction, right? It's that emptiness, that success doesn't equal fulfillment issue that we all deal with. Here's a big one. How many of you out here have this one? Perfectionism. It's the fear of making mistakes because failure feels like a personal inadequacy. And I know for myself, when I was dealing with perfectionism, like there's no room or space to be anything. And it's like the standard with which we set for ourselves and others is like, you can't keep up with it and it's not sustainable. So this thing called perfectionism, control is in there. Another one is hyper independence. Think about it. If you're shameful and you don't want to show like you don't know or you don't want to make mistakes, you definitely have a reluctance to ask for help or even show vulnerability. And vulnerability is the access to connected relationships. It's the access for freedom. It's access to peace. And we won't show that card. We keep the mask on. We keep the armor on. We don't want to show that vulnerability because we might die. It's literally that it runs that deep. I know it doesn't sound maybe like that severe, but it really is once you start peeling away this onion. The fear of depending on others due to past experiences of disappointment or rejection. See, we don't hold rejection as God's protection when we're living in this vicious cycle. We're living in rejection is death. I'll never forget, I was in business before social media came out, then social media came out and somebody goes, who's this guy, this big jamoke? And I remember I drank my face off and I crashed a rental car into a high curb in Boise, Idaho. I'll never forget it. And I went home to my wife and I said, honey, I'm losing my mind. Because somebody said one bad thing on social media. My whole thing was like, I had to prove to the world that I mattered. And if somebody, said one bad thing, and who gives a shit now? And now I'm the same guy. I look at that same thing and I'm like, well, they're just not ready for the information that I'm giving because I have one thing and there's not a manipulating bone in my body. I'm here merely espousing information that I have some awareness of that changed my life, and I want to help somebody else do that. You can accept it or refute it, and then if you want to call me a ding dong or whatever you want to call me, all good. But I used to get hooked like a fish without bait and a big ass hook, and I would go down. It took me down, right? So the other thing is, if it was meant to be, it's up to me. I'll do it myself. Micromanagement came into my business. I was like, I'll just do it. I wasn't training people. I was stuck in my business. That's how it manifests. This thing manifests itself deeply. Another way that it manifests is we off shame. So we don't even know we're off shaming. Like we're feeling like shit when we walk in the morning. And we off shame on people. We dump on it. And we actually, in a workshop, when we do live stuff, and you're invited, if you're on the podcast, you'll be invited to live programs with me. We actually distinguish your shame, and we take the chair, and you actually share your shame and hand it to somebody else. So it's like we don't realize we're giving away shame, but we also don't realize when you're in shame, you accept shame, and it's this vicious cycle that it's just horrible. And if you're stressed out and weighing down, this is where it all comes from. The other thing that happens is imposter syndrome, because if you're telling yourself you're bad, and then meanwhile, somebody is validating you, you actually can't even hear it. That's why you can't get fulfillment from the day in, day out. You feel like nobody loves nobody. I used to go walk around, nobody loves me. Nobody freaking loves me, right? So even despite the external success, the internal fear of being found out is not good enough, because what you're listening to and what you believe is that I am bad. And I want to, in other podcasts, I've been distinguishing, we are not our thoughts. we're going to start unpacking this shame so you can interrupt it, right? And we'll get to that today. And it's the difficulty of accepting praise. Like somebody acknowledges you and you can't say thank you because what you're hearing from the unevictable inner roommate is I am bad. So you're like, no, not really, because that's who you really are. When someone can't accept an acknowledgement, they go, no, that's all right. And it's like a Christmas present when somebody's trying to give it to you and you don't receive the acknowledgement. It's like, no, I don't want that gift. You're refuting that gift. Because when someone's acknowledging, they're acknowledging themselves about what they see in themselves and they see it in you. Now, here's the other thing. If you can't receive acknowledgement, you can't receive money and keep money. I mean, you might be able to receive it because it's like a coping mechanism, but you can't retain it. And that's where you get money with wings. It's really profound, distinction. And it's like we live, and see if you can identify with this, constant pressure to outperform ourselves, the never enough. And then where does that end up? Numbing and escapism. You hear me talking about alcohol. I'm 17 years sober. Now, the guilt piece of alcoholism and drug use is the effect. And it's also like in sex and gambling, adrenaline fueled activities. Like, I'm a mountain biker and I crashed. Like, that was adrenaline fueled crash. I call it the 3 A's and the P: adrenaline, addiction, and adultery. And the P is purpose. When you start connecting to your purpose, which is down here in your true self, not up here in the voice going around in circles, then you can now overcome and get to a sense of peace. And that's where we flip the script from chronic suffering and zero joy to zero suffering and chronic joy. Okay. It's the flipping of the switch, flipping of the script. And, overindulgence happens when you're saying I'm bad in work, in exercise. I know a lot of ultra marathoners. I'm like, how the hell can you do that? Like, dude, 50 miles, in Leadville, like, come on, you're a badass, but something's fueling that. It's not real to run for 50. Like, how do you run for 50 miles? Please. And material success and excess is a distractions, more garages, more Ferraris and more blowjobs, I mean, ladies, if you're listening, pardon me, that's just what we like. Anyway. Oh my God. I love the guy. I was in a meeting one day and the guy goes, this is, usually say, dolphins and rainbows. And this guy goes, yeah, like, life isn't a Ferraris and blowjobs. Like, and I just had to laugh. Just putting that in. I hope YouTube doesn't bounce me because of that. They're looking at our every word coming out of this podcast. It's interesting. Anyway, the other thing is control and proper fixation. The need for absolute control over business, relationships, and outcomes. Are you starting to hear like this is root cause for a lot of the manifestations on the symptoms that we live in? The struggles with delegation, trusting others, handling things, the tendency towards dominance and aggressive leadership styles. I used to tongue fu people. Like, with my tongue, and they would leave. Like, I didn't have communication to leave people empowered. I would just leave a room of dead people behind me because I was in shame and I would offload shame on them. It was freaking ridiculous. Anyway, emotional suppression. So this is where, this is the difference between men and women. See, women are so good at feeling, they express their feelings. We don't know what the hell to do with that because we're like told to suppress them. And when you live in shame and guilt, they get suppressed even more. By the way, if you're not sleeping with your wife, this is the root cause. See, women want to connect emotionally and we want to connect physically. And we can't get to that emotional connection because the shame is driving the machine. And we have, as my boy Michael Fishman says, these are the factory settings that we come out of the factory with. And we want to start adopting the modern man genius model, which I'm introducing to you in each episode of the podcast. So we don't want to appear weak. We don't want to feel judged, and we need support. And, obviously relationship struggles happen due to this because the emotional distancing, right? And then one of the last ones, there's 2 more. There's the fear of abandonment and rejection. This is where we have extreme sensitivity to criticism, that damn social media post. And man, you don't realize how we get flippered around and dictated and get put into a personal prison because of this. And then we have our difficulties with intimacy. And dude, if you're not sleeping once or twice a week with your wife, that's a problem. Don't make that acceptable. Start creating and looking in the mirror and taking care of yourself so you can take care of your wife. She wants to take care of you. But if you're just trying to do it physically, she can't do it that way. It's just not, they're not built that way. And it's like, we're going to have an episode on intimacy here. But I'm really cutting in these first podcasts. I want to get some of the foundational built until we get into more of the advanced conversations. So, and this is the other thing, if you have the love languages, I first started out when I had this shit going on, my love language was acknowledgement. Now it's quality time. Quality time is an experiential thing. Then my wife's is quality time. I used to be like, honey, I bought you Gucci shoes and I tell you you're beautiful. And she goes, you don't love me. It's because my head is in my cell phone and that's how I run my business. And she's over there going, you're not connected to me. So the last thing is self-sabotage. If you have this thing going on where you have a lot of cash and you kill it off, you have a lot of time and then you don't, you have things and you don't, you're really connected to your family and then you're not, excuse me. We create unnecessary obstacles when we're close to major breakthroughs. We'll kill it off. That's the deserve level thing. My book called Raise Your Healthy Deserve Level, it was my second book. It talks about the worthiness of self and what there is to do to create this subconscious belief that in life and in business, we don't get what we deserve. We get what we think we deserve. The shame dictates the worthiness of self, which also dictates who we attract in our lives, how we keep it there, and it addresses the two fears. The two fears, there's only two fears, not getting what we want or losing what we have. So let's start shifting. The true success comes when we shift from adultery, addiction, and adrenaline and move to a purpose-driven action. The best performers don't succeed because the best people, the highest performers, and what success in my position is, it's not about material success, but it's really having it all at one time is, bulletproof money, connected relationships, simplified health, and having a life where you're contributing to people and making a difference. See, when it stops being about you and you start being of service and you transform that. See, a purpose is to give away. I'm giving away. The reason why, I didn't retire, this is called rewirement. I'm in my rewirement stage because I'm rewiring how I'm working. I'm only working when I want, and I'm giving away the wisdom that I have. And you all have that, right? So you want to succeed when you align your ambition with meaning, fulfillment, and internal validation, not external validation. More cars is not going to make you feel better on the inside, okay? So the question is your success a way to build something meaningful or just a way to silence the voice saying you're not enough? Because guess what? That voice, you can drown it in all the numbness we talked about, but that shit can swim like Michael Phelps. Those feelings, those emotions drive you and you don't even know it's happening. And I say you, the universal you. This may not be you. And if it's not, I want to hear from you because I want to hear from this is a commonality I've experienced with all the men that I've coached. Every single one of them. There wasn't until they might not be aware of it initially, but after a while, I would get a call back when somebody say, you said that, and it was really, really true. So I want to share a personal experience with you, how this showed up in my life. Because I realized that my own drive for success wasn't coming from the right place. It was really, for years, I pushed myself harder than anyone around me. I was like the Derek Jeter. Like, he's like, there's one thing that you can count on. Nobody could outwork me. And, I love hockey. It's like somebody said, it's like, I want to give sweat, but I don't want to give blood. I used to give blood, right? And if there was a goal, I had to beat it. If there was a competitor, I had to be the best. I thought, it's what all high achievers did. But if I'm being honest, I wasn't chasing success. I was running from something. And one night after closing a huge business deal, I sat alone in my office and I felt, where I should have felt on top of the world, incredible. It was a win that I dreamt about forever. I worked hard for it. I deserved to get it. But instead, there was this empty feeling in my gut. Yeah. And then the voice kicked in. And it was the unevictable inner roommate going, that was good, but it's not enough. What's next for you? I didn't even savor for 30 seconds. It's a black hole, guys, that is endless, that's never fulfilling, and you can't get to it by external things. Inside man. Again, we're working on inside man. I realized that no matter what I accomplished, I would never feel like it was enough. And imagine hanging out with me. My team hated it. We would win all kinds of games that we put in place, and they'd be like, he's on to the next thing. And employees freaking hate that. They run for the hills. My attrition rate at some point got high because they could never feel like they were winning around me. And I was really trying to prove something to myself that I couldn't prove with money, success, or accolades. And it was really, I'll share mine, and we do this work together as we go, as you hear this. But mine was, I was in the arc of a man. There's 3 octagons. Octagon number 1 is you with the person that you're proving that you matter. Because somewhere along the way, we tell ourselves, I don't matter. And for me, it was my dad. My dad wasn't around for my baseball games. He never really told me he loved me. He wasn't really around. And when he was around, all he did was beat my ass and tell me I wasn't enough. And it was interesting because, I was like, I'll show him. And I started working when I was 8, like ridiculous, right? I worked nights and weekends. I used to work 7 days a week. Workaholism was started at 7 or 8. And it was largely because the validation I got from that. But I never got validation from my father. And I didn't know that that was the underbelly of the shame that I was telling myself, I must be bad if my dad beats me with a belt. I must be bad if he tells me that I got an A and I should get an A+. And that's what I heard. I did clean up with my dad because through my alcoholism, I apologized to him for my alcoholism. And guess what happened? He started crying and never forget it. And he said, son, I'm sorry for how I treated you. I did the best I could. I didn't know how to do any different. It was how I was brought up. And I wanted you to be the best version of you, and probably got on me, my inadequacies, my shame got on you. And I didn't realize I did that. And oh my gosh, I hugged my dad. And we were buds ever since that moment. And I walked him to heaven. He was in the hospital. And I stayed by him 24/7 for 2 weeks. And I held his hand, and he died of COVID eventually. And oh my God, it was beautiful. I couldn't imagine, disconnecting from him. And here's what I learned from that. It was a healing process. By the way, if you can't feel, you can't heal. And this vulnerability that I'm sharing with you is like the healing process. And I still feel it, right? It's still going on, yeah. And my point to you is this. It's like, here I was proving to my dad I was wasting time. He's like, I didn't want that to happen in the first place. And I spent my whole life proving to my dad in octagon number 1 in the arc of a man, what the hell, rooting from proving him wrong and making myself right. So you'll find yours as you go through this. You'll start to identify it. By the way, the other 2 arcs of a man is you with your empire, making payroll, dealing with family, work, living a full life as a man and battling how to do that. And that's what this podcast is for. The last one is when you exit your business, you're going to deal with your ego identity. And we're dealing with really all 3 of these things in the podcast. You can read about it in Life in All Cylinders. I talk briefly about the arc of a man and the 3 octagons that we go to battle in our lives. So, shame can push you to the top, man. It can get you to an ultra marathon, 50 miles in Leadville. It could get you to a, $1 billion. I know a lot of 9-figure guys, but it won't let you enjoy the view. So you'll get to the top, but you won't enjoy the view. So I want you to begin to get here. So how do we recognize the root of the drive? Where does not enough come from? Your drive didn't come from nowhere. It was like where it was wired by you, your family, or society. If you constantly feel like you need to prove yourself, ask yourself this: who am I proving it to? That's the question here. Who am I proving it to? And when you get quiet in those quiet moments, instead of doom scrolling or looking at porn, please get quiet and say, who am I proving all this shit to have all this stuff? And you'll get to it. And write about it in your journal if you can. Again, make sure you got one of these around. I know it sucks, but I'm giving you, I know meditation, I know journaling, you hear it all the time, but when you start cracking, just write, hey, I don't know what to write here. And then, I just realized that get a cigar, go out, watch the sunset, and go, I realized that I'm really proving this because I feel like shit, and I'm telling myself I'm a bad person. And even if you just wrote that down, because what happens is when you write stuff down, you're getting it out of your head, and you're seeing in visual paper, and all things start changing. What would happen if you stopped that machinery? If you interrupted, like, hey, I'm not going to sit here and spend the rest of my life proving to my dad that I mattered, right? I want you to write down a defining moment where you first felt like you weren't enough. See, when you get to the root cause of it, like it might have been an experience. Like I remember my dad pulling out the belt and I was scared out of my mind, and he took it and shot me. And I'm like, I ran crying in my room, and I was like, I stayed in my room and I hid forever, like felt like forever. And I was like, this is never going to happen again. And I made a choice that this was never going to happen again. In this model, in the modern man model, awareness is the first step. Then accepting that was so. So like, okay, I accept that that's where it all started, right? This external thing, this family thing. So now what you want to get into, now that you have awareness, you want to get into rewiring your mindset using positive motivation instead of like fear-based drive, right? So high performers don't need shame. They don't need shame to succeed. They need a mission. See, I'm on a mission to get 1 million guys operating from zero suffering and chronic joy. That is my jam. I believe if I can help transform 1 million guys, 1 million ladies are going to get transformed, and multi-million kids are going to get transformed, and the multi-million people that work in the businesses that we run are going to get transformed. So, I'll be able to slide into my grave and go, hey, man, I'm going for 1 million, but shit, because it rhymes with man, million and man, so I can remember it. But, it's like, if I get one guy doing that, I won my game. You know what I mean? It's like, because I made a difference, and really get, tied to your mission and what you stand for, instead of like the factory settings, like my friend Michael Fishman talks about, and start moving to the iOS, the identity operating system, the identity of like me being a purpose-driven mission. So reframe your biggest goal. Instead of I need to hit X to feel successful, change it to I'm building X because I believe in the mission behind it. See, when you get behind the mission, all of a sudden magic starts happening. I want you to measure progress also differently, moving from proving to building. You heard it in that action step. Stop measuring yourself by external validation. Start measuring yourself by internal fulfillment. An action step here would be, instead of tracking wins by money, status, approval, track these. How many meaningful conversations did I have this week? Did I progress in a way that aligns with my values and my mission? And am I building something that truly matters to me? See, I want to leave a legacy that I'm living a legacy now, experiencing this with you, hearing all the good stuff that's happening from this podcast, seeing all the subscribers, seeing all the shares. But I don't take subscribership as a validation for me. I go, I'm doing a job and I'm creating value, and people want to know about what's next. And that elevates me, and that challenges me to come up with good communication that's relevant to you. Okay. So this is the key takeaway. Success should be driven by growth, not fear. If shame is fueling your ambition, it's time to replace it with something stronger: purpose, passion, and a vision for something bigger than just proving your worth. So here's your call to action. This resonated with you, my brother, my sister. Make sure that if you know somebody living in a shame-driven success vicious circle, and they want to build new fulfillment, share this episode with them. Please. They'll get to enough and your life will be better because you did. And then if you want to run deeper, look for the opportunities, reach out to me, because I direct coach men in their businesses, and we're going to have a group starting, and I want you to be a part of it if you want to take a deeper dive. So this is Gary Kadi reminding you. And please call me GK. I love the GK. It's more informal. I want you to feel like we're connected. And when I see you live, you'll say GK, and I'll know that you've been listening, and you'll be able to share some of your wins with me. Your success isn't about proving, and it isn't about proving anything. It's about creating something real. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode because, oh man, I'm going to light it up. I'm going to be talking about the hidden cost of winning when success creates more problems. Imagine success being in the way of going to the next level. I'll see you when I see you. I love you, brother. Keep going. Keep going.